Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good morning. Just getting my iPad set up. If you joined me last week, I did some coloring. I colored these little kitties, and I just wanted to show you that they did actually make it onto projects. So I ended up making 2 cards. I just fussy cut them out and I put them onto a stenciled background. So that candy corn is a 3-piece layering stencil set. And then this postcard, that is a die that I die cut 3 times, layered it up for some dimension. And then this stamp, the sentiment came from the same set as the kitty. So just a few different products used in this project. And of course there are 2 of them because I did color 2 kitties. Excuse me. To finish them off, I've got some little shiny gems on there as well, and I think that that is a great finishing touch. So that wrapped up last week's project, and this week I just got this new stamp set. This is an exclusive set from Scraps of Love, which is a paper crafting store in Peoria, Arizona. It's very close to Phoenix, if you're familiar with where Phoenix is. It's not a suburb, but it's a city that's connected to Phoenix, and I'm lucky that I don't live all too far away. And they do design some exclusive stamp sets for their store, and this is their latest release. It's Arizona, right? So we've got some structures here that look very Arizonian. There's a little bat on there with a cactus. And then this one is my favorite image. This is a saguaro cactus wearing a sheet as a ghost. So funny. Also, we have the barrel cactus, which is a jack-o'-lantern. So we've got 2 cacti dressed up and ready for Halloween. So I am going to be making a simple card tonight using this stamp set. That's the plan. So, clearing my throat, please excuse me. Just had a big salad for dinner. So the first thing that I'm going to do is out my stamping tool. This is a Misti if you've never seen this before. So back in the day when we first started our stamping hobbies, we would use red rubber stamps on a wooden block, and you just dip this in the ink and then you push it down and you hope, you know, you stamp it and you hope that you get a good impression. But most of the time your impression was not perfect. It's just the nature of stamping, and if you practice a lot and you have really good stamps and really good ink, you could do a pretty good job. But now we have stamp positioning tools. There are several on the market. This one's called a Misti, and what it allows us to do is use clear stamps, which are often made of something called photopolymer, and they're sticky. I'm just gonna peel him off. There's my photopolymer stamp. So if I put it on my finger, you can see it's stuck there. So it's a little sticky. And that stickiness will allow not only the ink to stick to it, but also stick to my platform here. Now, if you didn't have a tool like this, what you would use instead is called a stamping block. And what's nice about these is that it allows us to put more stamps in a smaller space, because when we did wood stamps, you can see just how much space one little stamp takes up. But now that we do photopolymer, we can make these flat packs, and you really can store many more than you could ever do with red rubber in the same space. So you could put the stamp on a block like this and just pick it up, sticks to it, dip it in your ink, put on your project. And the advantage of this over the red rubber, of course, is that it's clear and you can see through it and you can see exactly where you're going to stamp it. But the advantage of a tool like the Misti, which is a stamp positioning tool, is that not only can you see exactly where it's going to go, but also if you do not get a perfect impression, which you probably will not, you can stamp it again and add more ink. Now, this is a brand new stamp set, so I haven't used it before. And what I'm going to be doing right now might look a little weird. I'm conditioning the stamp. It's very, very sticky, and it has a residue on it from the manufacturing process. And there are a couple of different ways that you can get rid of that. One of them is to rub it with a white eraser. But another thing you can do is just rub it against your skin, and that does a really good job. And so I usually don't look for my eraser. I usually just rub it against my hand. And now it's going to be ready to take the ink. So I'm going to be using an ink that works with alcohol markers. Not all inks are created equally. Some of them are great for watercolor. Some of them are great for alcohol inks. Some of them are great for all purposes, but for tonight, I need one that's good for for alcohol ink. And I thought it was right behind me, but I was wrong. Okay, let's see. Where are you, ink pad? Oh dear. Well, I might just have to change my game plan a little bit because my ink is not right where I thought it was. So here's a different ink pad. This one is great for fine details. And we can see on the back, it's good for watercolor. So we're gonna watercolor instead of alcohol marker, and that is no big deal. We can be flexible. All right, so it's time to ink it up. This is a great ink, by the way. If you're ever looking for a really dark black that stamps beautifully, VersaFine Onyx Black, it's great. Okay, put my ink on there. And then I'm going to close my stamp positioning tool. And then you can rub on this in a lot of different ways. I even have a tool that it's like an air hockey, not the puck, but the thing that you hit the puck with. That's what it is. And it just helps to apply some even pressure. So there is my first stamping. And you can see it's not perfect. I'm being a little risky by picking this up, but I just want you to see, you know, some of this is nice and dark and black, but there's some areas where it did not ink perfectly. So I'm going to put it back in and hope that I had it exactly in the corner originally. Usually when you use a tool like this, you do not want your paper to move at all, because even if it moves a little bit, it's just, I mean, it's going to show up in your stamped image that you moved it. So let's see. All right. And I'm putting a little bit more pressure in that area because that's where I saw, you know, it didn't stamp perfectly the first time. Now, it's nothing bad about the stamp. It's just the nature of stamping. And the more that you use a stamp, the more you're going to get a better result the first time. So this is the first time I had ever stamped it. I expected to stamp it twice anyway, but we've got a great result now. So I can put my ink away, and I'm just going to wipe my stamp down so that I can put it away. I don't want to leave it in my Misti because I have a mat in here that's also sticky, and if that stamp touches this sticky mat, it's going to get stuck in there. And I mean, it's not like I'd never be able to get it out, but it's just not worth the hassle. I'm just wiping it down with a stamp chamois. You can tell this one is well loved. This one's from Lawn Fawn, a bunch of different companies that make them. And you just wet it, and then you can use it to wipe up the ink. Very nice tool when it comes to stamping. So this stamp is going to get peeled off, put back on the sheet, there is plastic on the front and the back to protect it and make sure it's not going to get all dusty. And then I'm going to put it back into the packaging. So there we go. All right. How funny to have a ghost on a cactus. I just think that is so clever. Now, when I was originally thinking about my design here, I was thinking that I would color this and then cut it out and then do a background on another panel. Now that I realize I'm doing watercolor, I'm trying to think if that is still the route I want to go. I'm almost wondering if maybe I just trim off the bottom and then do all watercolor all on one piece and not worry about trimming it down. It's kind of where I'm leaning now. And when we craft, a big part of it is being creative, and a big part of being creative is being flexible. So I'm just gonna trim this and see if I like the framing that I can get. BP's Fave Blink says, do you jelly plate? I love my jelly plate. That is a fun tool to use, yes. So I think I like the framing of this, and then I can add it onto a card base that's maybe a solid color. Let me just grab another color here. It's gonna be a Halloween card, so I don't know if I'll go with purple or not. But just imagine it's going to end up looking something like this, except this is all going to be colored in. I think I like that. BP's Fave Blink says the Jelly Plate Summit was today. I did not know that. I am sorry that I missed it. I was working today. And I keep missing all of these great crafting events, but I guess there's just too many to do them all. So we're watercoloring. I think I'm going to use some watercolor pencils. BP, did you go to the Jelly Plate Summit? I assume it was virtual. Did you attend that today? North Carolina, awesome. Did you go in person? There's not a lot of saguaro cacti out in North Carolina, that's for sure. For my watercolors, I'm going to be using these Derwent Inktense pencils. It's not exactly watercolor, but it's close. So we'll be adding color with pencil, and then we'll be activating the ink in the pencil with water. So let's see, I'm gonna need an orange, and I've got a couple of oranges. I'm gonna grab both of those, and we're gonna need some green. So I've got a light green and a darker green, and then I'm probably going to want to add a little bit of shading to my ghost. I have to think, what color should I shade my ghost? We could use gray. Gray feels boring, but I guess it's gonna be gray. I don't have any other great ideas right now. So we'll use that. And then for our background, oh geez. I was not planning on watercoloring a background. I was definitely not planning on using colored pencils for a background, but I think maybe after I get the main image done, maybe some inspiration will hit. Okay. I'm just gonna get centered here. Zoom in a little bit and start coloring. So if you've ever done watercolor with pencils before. I mean, it really feels like cheating to me as far as art mediums go, and I love watercoloring. I do. Just from a pan. It could be a cheap pan of colors, or it could be tubes of fine watercolor. It doesn't really matter to me. I love it. But it really feels like cheating to me to be able to use pencils like this, because you have so much control of where you put your colors down, and you can put all of your colors down at once and then just add all of your water. Of course, you can go back and do layering, but you don't even need to add color to all of the places. You can really move the color around with your water brush or your paintbrush, whatever you're using, and it feels like cheating to me for sure. But not complaining. I like it. It's fun. You'll see this is going to come together really, really fast. So all I'm doing is adding some color with this colored pencil. It does look like my black ink might not be dry all the way, so I may go in with my heat gun and just try to cook that ink a little bit. This is my neutral gray color. I'm going to add just a little bit around where I'm going to put some shading. And if you were here from the beginning, you know I was not planning on watercoloring this. I was going to use alcohol ink. So this is not watercolor paper. And that just means I need to be careful with how much water I add to my paper so that it doesn't end up warping too much. Am I going to be able to avoid all the warping? No. No, I am not. But, okay, this is a heat gun. I've had mine for a very long time. I don't know if they make this exact one anymore, but it's pink, which is my favorite color, and it's kind of noisy. I'm gonna see if I can mute my mic. Okay, just so you don't have to listen to it, because I don't know how loud it'll be on your end. I'm gonna mute and heat. Actually, I'll turn it on so you can hear it, and then I'll mute. And that heat, that was for my ink, not for my pencils. And if I would have realized that the ink wasn't quite dry before I started using the pencils, I definitely would have heated that up first. So just to kind of explain what my process is here. And while I'm looking at this, I'm thinking about my sentiment. I think I'm gonna use this Boo from the Desert, and I think I'm gonna stamp it right there. I wish it was just a little bit bigger, but I think that's gonna look great. I'm excited. That is gonna be a nice placement. So the next step is going to be activating the colored pencils with water. And again, I was not planning on watercoloring tonight, so I don't have a bowl of water, but I do have a little bowl, and I have my spray bottle. So we actually don't need a lot of water, so that should be fine. I'm also going to grab a little towel so that I can wipe up the excess ink from my brush. And that means I just need a brush. I'm trying to see if I have one that I don't have to move too far for. This is a very big brush, so I'm gonna need just one moment. You can probably still hear me. I'm just grabbing my brushes from a few feet away. Okay. So I've got some brushes in a cup. I'm not gonna use all of these. I just need one. Let's see. Want one that's small but not too small. Let's use this one. This is a 6 round. Okay, so I'm going to wet the brush. Step 1, wet the brush. Step 2, unwet the brush. I'm just gonna dab it off a little bit. And then we're going in. I'm gonna start with the gray. And I'm just gently brushing over that with a tiny, tiny bit of water. I'm really not doing anything fancy here at all. Just trying to do a natural type of movement, trying to keep it moving pretty fast because I'm not using a lot of water. I don't want too much warping. Just brushing in, brushing over, and trying to be quick about it. Okay, that's it for the ghost. Told you it was going to be quick. I'm going to wash off my brush. There's no visible ink in there, so I'm not worried about transferring that gray to the cactus, but I am going to do the cactus next. I'm doing the green. So again, wet the brush, dry off the brush just a little bit, and then I'm dipping into that color. This green is really vibrant. You can see the other arm I colored the exact same way with the pencils, so you can see the difference between the dry and the wet. And this is going to dry back a little bit, but it's still going to be pretty vibrant. And if I'm not happy with my blend here, I can just go back once it's dry and add more layers of color. Okay, other side, trying to work quickly since it's not very wet. Do you see what I mean by it feels kind of like I'm cheating? Like the water application of that was 4 seconds, 5 seconds maybe, I don't know. It was very, very quick. Same thing, wet the brush, dab off, and let's hit the bottom of that cactus. Boom, done. And then we just have our jack-o'-lantern. Rinsing the brush off, there's really no green in there, so we'll go right into our orange. I did actually add some red to the edge of my jack-o'-lantern, and that's just to give this a little bit of shading. I used a couple shades of green on my cactus, so since I didn't have 2 shades of orange in this type of pencil, I just used some red there. And there he is, all watercolored up. Well, it's not quite totally dry yet, but you can see on the back, it's not very wet either. I really tried not to use much water. I do want this to dry completely before I mess with it too much more. So I'm just gonna leave it. I don't think that I need to use my heat gun, but if I was in a real hurry, I could do that as well. So the background. My only hesitation with using these pencils for the background is that even if I try really hard not to use a lot of water, it's still going to be enough water to really warp this paper. So I am wondering if I could just, I could be very careful with my alcohol marker and make sure not to touch that. I might end up with a little halo around it. I think it's going to be hard with those little spikes. I guess I could leave it white. I guess that's an option. Hello, Stephanie. Welcome back. Nice to see you. Thinking. I'm not going to use purple. This just gives you an idea of the final layout. Well, okay, well, I think we're gonna use distress crayons because that'll be fun. It'll be fun, and that will be something a little bit different. So I'm gonna put down a little mixed media mat so I don't get crayon all over my desk. And this is from Waffle Flower. You can see it's well loved. And I'm going to use distress crayon. You know, those really need activated with water too. If anybody's watching that has a great idea for how I should color this background, what medium to use, I am all ears. I guess we could use regular colored pencil, but I feel like this needs to be a nighttime scene, so it would be ideal if it's something kind of dark. Okay, well, it's gonna be marker. I've decided. I'm just gonna have to be careful, and there might be some bleeding, and that's okay. This is a Spectrum Noir alcohol marker. These are the type of markers I was planning on doing this entire project with. And I'm just gonna try really hard not to bleed my ink. So for those of you who weren't here at the beginning, my plan was alcohol ink for all of it, and then I couldn't quickly find the right ink, and the ink that I used is not alcohol marker friendly. So I used watercolor, but I don't want to watercolor this whole background and risk it being super warpy. So, okay, there's that. Now, I think dark blue. It would be nice if we could do some ink blending for the background and do some different gradients and shading. Maybe we'll do something like that next week. For today, I think we're just gonna do one solid dark blue, and then maybe we'll add some white stars. I'm taking out my swatch sheet here just to help me pick my blue background. I think this TB9, that's about as dark of a blue as I have, and it's probably going to be a little streaky, but we're live. What's the worst that could happen, right? Okay, we'll just take our time. Halloween brownies on Friday. Stephanie, that sounds real nice. Yeah. So far, this marker feels very juicy. That's good news. Also, it's so dark that I don't think it matters if my ink runs a little bit, because I don't think you'll be able to see it. So probably a good choice. The problem comes when I start working with a large edge, and then my marker is going to start feeling dry because we have to work quickly, because we don't want any of the edge to dry before we add the next bit of color to it, because we don't want lines. Okay. If you're watching, I'd love to hear if you color with alcohol markers or watercolor and what you prefer. There's a little bit of blotchiness, but I kind of like that. I think if it was too solid, it might be a little boring. So I'm happy with that. It's less blotchy than I expected. So I have to be happy for that too. The only thing that I don't like is that because I chose such a dark color, it's really absorbing the black spikes on the cactus. I really liked that detail in the stamp, so that's okay. I'll Also kind of makes our little string disappear there. You can see where some of this is starting to dry. It's getting a little blotchier. This is risky business. Add an extra layer like this, an uneven layer, but he's looking pretty fun. I think this is turning out really great. Now for my ground, you might have noticed I was not very careful with what I was doing down there. And that's because I'm going to, when this fully dries in a moment, I'm going to add in some black acrylic marker and just kind of finish it off, because in the stamped image, it really only went to like right here and right here. So it was not complete across the bottom anyway. So I knew that I wanted to add that part in. I want to add in a black, not exactly a line, but add in some black detail to separate the sky from the ground. I think before I do that though, I'm going to add another layer of the brown to make this a little bit darker. So I'm not going to put a lot of effort into that. I'm just going to streak across. Just darken it up a little bit. There we go. I think that's nice. And then we'll be adding this black in a moment. So if I am going to add the sentiment from the stamp set, I can't stamp it in black because that's not going to show up on here. So I'm going to need to either use another color, or I could stamp it on another piece of paper and then cut that out and then add it here. So I've got a couple minutes to decide what I want to do with that. I also like this moon image. The moon, we could stamp that up here and then color it in with some acrylic markers. So I think we may do that. And then we can use an acrylic marker to add some stars. I think that'll be nice. We could add in the bats with a black ink, but I really don't think you're going to be able to see them. I mean, look how hard it is to see those spikes and the little handle for the jack-o'-lantern. And honestly, I'm looking at this through my phone and I'm looking at it in real life, and it's easier to see it on the phone actually than in real life. So I don't think it'll be worth stamping our little black bats, but maybe we can find another way to add some more detail. So black Sharpie, this is an acrylic marker and the original stamp. And yes, I am working sideways, and it's easier to make marks like this than it is to make marks like this. This doesn't feel like a very natural movement to me. So if I'm going to make long marks, I would rather pull them toward me and push away than going side to side. That's just a personal preference, but as you can see here, this is not a straight line on either side. So I'm not going to attempt to make this straight either. Just kind of making some little hills, adding in some little features. And again, not taking a ton of time to do that. They're not things that will really stand out anyway. This is the desert. There are pokey things everywhere. So I think that is worth adding in as well. And maybe even some little dots for some texture in a few places, just for visual interest. And then I'll rotate him back around so you don't have to turn your head to see our little scene. I'm very happy with that. Other than figuring out how I want my sentiment, I think this is very pleased, even though it's not what I originally intended. Okay, we're gonna stamp the moon right there and color with acrylic markers. This is not going to be a perfect process. I guarantee one layer of acrylic marker is not going to cover up that blue alcohol marker, but we will make it work. Another option, an easier option, would be just to stamp on white, color that in, and then cut it out. What do you think? Should I just take the easy way? The only issue, you get to be here while I think through every issue. The only issue is if we stamp it here and then I'm coloring it in with the acrylic marker, like I said, it's going to take a few layers, but it's going to be really hard to not cover any of the black with the yellow. And then I'm going to have to go back with a black marker and try to make the black line look solid again. So I don't really feel like I'm chickening out, but I think I'm just trying to make a better decision. So what I think now is if I just stamp this on yellow, then I don't even have to color it. I just have to cut it out and glue it on. So if it's okay with you, I think we're stamping on yellow. Stamp on yellow, cut it out, done. This is the first yellow cardstock I found. That looks like a highlighter. I'm not sure that's the right yellow we want. Let's see if we can find something a little more tame. Yes. If there's something I do not have a shortage of in my craft room, it's cardstock. Okay. It's kind of fun. The highlighter yellow is kind of fun, but Stephanie, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. How fun. We were just making references about Willy Wonka at work today, actually. If you were here at the beginning, I showed you a stamp positioning tool. I'm going to be using a different one here. This is just a small one. And it's the same idea where we are going to put our paper in and we don't want it to move. So I'm going to tape it. I'm going to put my little stamp in the corner down at the bottom, just so I'm not wasting a bunch of the cardstock. And I'm probably going to have to stamp this more than once. I'm going to pick up my stamp, and I've never used the stamp before, so to condition it, I could use a white eraser, or I can just rub it against my skin for a minute, and that starts to get rid of the manufacturing residue that's on the stamps. And it's just there until you use them, until you get rid of it. So, okay. Black ink. The way this positioner works is the top lines up on these little pegs, and then you push down. If you push and hold for a moment, it does help the ink absorb into the paper a little bit, and I got a really great impression that time, so we do not need to double stamp. If this was not perfect, all I would do is re-ink this stamp and then push down again. It hasn't moved, so it's in the exact same spot.
Motion detected in front door.
And then I would just be able to get a second coating of ink and have a perfect stamp, even if it wasn't perfect the first time. But it was. We got lucky. I'm going to cut this out. I am aging gracefully. I have carpal tunnel. And so I do anything I can to be more ergonomic in my crafting. And scissors like this, these scissors, instead of a regular pair, I'll show you a comparison real quick, where you put your fingers in and you manually have to move out, in, out, in. Every movement that you do is manual. With these ergonomic scissors, they have a spring in them, so they automatically pop open on their own, which means the only movement that you have to do is the in, not the out, just the in. And you don't have to shove your thumb in there. So you can use your whole hand like this and not wear out your thumb joint, and you only have to do half of the work. So highly recommended for you if you love your joints, and if you're starting to have trouble like I am, just anything you can do to be kinder to them. is worthwhile. I have somehow lost my moon. Do you see it? Do you see it on the desk anywhere? I wanted to show you those scissors and then it disappeared. Too funny. Okay. Ah, it was stuck to the back. So cutting it out. The outside will be the easy part. The inner curve will be a little more interesting, but so after I cut this out, it's just gonna get glued in the sky. The other thing that's nice about doing something like this is if you don't cut quite perfectly, you can take a black marker and go around the edge and no one will know any better. That's really nice. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. Don't need this anymore. There's our moon. So you can see there's still some yellow showing around the edge here. This one I think I'm going to trim off. And then I'm debating on if I want to take a black marker on the outside just to get rid of the rest of that. What do you think? It's looking pretty cute, right? If you're just joining us, I'm just going to show you really quickly the stamp set that I'm using. This is exclusive to a local craft store here in Arizona called Scraps of Love. They do ship, so if you don't live in Arizona and you love this, you can go on their website and you can grab this. They'll ship it to you, but really super cute. Love the cactus with a ghost. So we're going to add that black around the edges, and to do that, I'm just going to take a black marker. It really doesn't matter what kind of marker. I'm not going to use acrylic because that'll take longer to dry. So my Spectrum Noir black it's on the fritz. It's dying, but there's enough ink in it to do this. I'm just going to pick it up, go around the outside. It's going to get rid of the little bits of yellow. That'll look just a little nicer in the sky. Awesome. And then I mentioned that we would add some stars. So we'll glue that down and add some stars. Do I want it in or out? I think I like it out. I learned something interesting the other day. It's just something I'd never ever thought of before, but super interesting. For any of you who do any sort of art and you create scenes that might have a moon in them, I guess when I put my stars, they just go all over, and if I have a crescent moon, then my stars might go here, 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 here. But any stars that are here, if you put stars here, well, that doesn't make any sense at all, right? Because if it's a crescent moon, the moon is still round. The moon is still this full circle, right? There would not be stars visible here or here or here. This should all be dark. Now, are there stars behind the moon? Yes, but are there stars in front of the moon? No. So I'd never thought of it before. I don't know, it just didn't occur to me. So if you're making your art and you want it to be just a tiny bit more realistic, don't put your stars inside the circle where your crescent is, because that just doesn't make any sense. Too funny, right? The things we don't think of. Or maybe it was just me, maybe everybody else already knew that. Okay, for my stars, Oh, this is the marker that gave me trouble last week. I am going to choose a different marker. Maybe a gel pen, actually. You can only see a tiny part of my work area. I've only been live for, I don't even know what time it is, like 45 minutes, and I have quite the mess going 2 inches to the left here. So I keep some of my pens in here, including some of my gel pens, and I'm just looking to see what we've got. I've got another one of these. This isn't the one that gave me trouble. I might come back to that. Let's see. Let's try this one. I always have a little scrap of paper with me when I'm doing my coloring and my creating, so I can swatch things out and just test them, see how they're working. Oh yeah, this is working great. So I'm gonna put some stars, but I'm not putting any stars in here. Don't worry, I'm not gonna spend too long on any step on this project, actually. So I'm gonna add some dots. I could take the time to actually put some constellations in here, but we will not be doing that. This is turning out so cute. Different than I expected, different than I planned, but still very cute. When you do your little dots, you don't want them to be super even, and you want some of them to be close together and some of them to be further apart. You can come back and add some more if they need it. I really like that. It's looking very cute. So we're almost done. And I like to wrap up around 6, so we've got 5 minutes. This is the stamp set that I used. I'm thinking that I really like this Boo from the Desert right here. But also, we could do Happy Halloween from Arizona on the rest of the panel. So let's just take a quick look at what that would look like. So here's a white panel, and this would go on the front of my card. I am creating a card tonight. We can put this on here. I imagine it to be closer to the top than the bottom. And then we could do Happy Halloween down here. And it looks like this From Arizona is the same size font. Does it all fit? Oh, barely. That might be tricky. But we could do Happy Halloween from Arizona. We could do Happy Halloween from Arizona. We could just do Happy Halloween. I don't know. I feel like I want this in one long line. Now, the issue is that if I want these stamped in one straight line, I cannot stamp them at the same time. And the reason is because there's too much extra stamp, like the blank part of the stamp in here. And so there's gonna be too much space between the N and the F. Yes, we need some space between them because they're separate words, but there's a little bit too much. And so if we stamped one and then stamped the other, I think it's gonna be really tough to line that up. And now the time is ticking, so how much time do I want to spend on that? Hello, little Goofy. Happy Wednesday. I am brave. You're right. I'm brave. I could do this. It might not be perfect. I'm going to grab a T-square right behind me. And this allows me to get one side of my panel lined up so that it's perpendicular to where I want my sentiment to be. And looks like we need this to be down just a little bit more. And then, yeah, stamp it right in there. I'm just gonna put this other one in here real quick and see. I do have enough space, just barely. And then the other issue is that it's not flat along the bottom. Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I am brave. I don't know if I'm brave enough to do this on camera. I think it's gonna take me a while to line those up perfect. So I guess I could finish it and then show it to you next week, or what would you do if you were me? Would you just do something different? We could just line them up centered, like this. Happy Halloween from Arizona. That wouldn't be so tricky. I don't know if I like the look of that as much, but it's not bad. Not too bad. Okay, let's do that. I'm going to bring my stamp positioner back from the very beginning. This was the first tool that I used tonight. Purpose of this is to make sure you get a nice, clean stamp. Even if it's not stamped perfect the first time, that's okay. You can go back and stamp again. So I'm going to put my little image in here where I think I want it. I think I like it there. And you might notice I've got a little bit of blank space over here on the side. That's okay, I'll just trim that off. And then I'm just going to try and put these in the middle the best that I can and center them. How do we do that? Mostly it's practice. You can use all sorts of different tools to make sure everything is perfect, but the more you practice, the better you'll get at just eyeballing it. People often say eyeballing it. Now, once I have my stamps down, I'm going to zoom in a little so you can see this. There are grid lines, and I'll be able to check and see, does this look pretty straight? And my initial thought is that it looks pretty straight, maybe not perfect, but looks pretty straight, looks pretty centered. So I haven't conditioned these stamps yet, so they're gonna stick to my paper a little. That's okay. I'm gonna take my little scene out, and then to condition the stamps, we can use...
Don't forget to take out your trash can.
Alexa's reminding us about the trash. Oh, I moved it a little. I moved it just a little too much. Let's see if I can put it back. Yeah, okay. You can use a white eraser for this step, or you can just use your skin, the oils on your skin. And now we're almost done. We're gonna do this stamping. I'm gonna use that same ink I've been using all night, the one that's not alcohol marker friendly, but the stamp's nice and dark. It's called VersaFine Onyx Black. I'm putting the ink right here. Let's zoom back out. There we go. Okay. And moment of truth. How crooked did I make it when I bumped it? Not too bad. Not too bad. All right, one more attempt with the ink. Then we need our glue. Do a little trim and we will be done. Happy Halloween from Arizona. This is going to get glued right here. Trim down and added to our card. And that's it. For those of you who have been watching tonight, I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thanks so much for spending some time with me. Scott and Rachel, if you're there, hello, hello. Happy early Halloween from the desert. Now I can tell it's scooted a little bit this way. So since I know I have to trim off my panel, I am going to adjust it that way a little tiny bit. There we go. And I don't want to touch that ink because that ink that I just stamped is certainly not totally dry yet. I'm going to grab my little trimmer. You can see I justified it to the right a little extra, just so I can try to get this text centered a little bit better. This tiny little paper trimmer is a great tool. Push and cut. There we go. Just glue this on a card base and we are all finished. Thanks again for joining me. I will be back at the same time next Wednesday. Have a great week, everybody.